And we're live. Yeah. We were just chatting offline about the delays. If I shorten the delay, it's way, way, way too unstable. And if I lengthen it, then anyone in chat wouldn't be able to comment on something we're talking about in the moment. So it's a balancing act. But we're, guess what? We're the Modern Relics. We are live. That's me just talking shit. I'm Angel. He's Lucky. We're back. Guess what? Guess what it is, dude?
What is it?
It's double nickels. It's our 55th episode. Can you believe it?
No kidding.
55, man.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Well, I came in late because I worked today, which is not typical for my Tuesday, but that's why we are a couple minutes late coming live. I had to feed my fat face before I came down here because I would have been brain dead and useless. But I was doing a cover up on an ankle on a lady who she's a nurse, so she can only come in on Tuesdays. She was actually one of my raffle winners, so she got to finally get that scheduled. And unfortunately, it was like one of those, it can only happen on Tuesday situations.
Yeah.
And it was far more invested than I had anticipated. It was a full wraparound on her ankle, cover up of flowers and mandalas and stuff. So, and she was willing to keep going. So she kept going past the 2-hour mark. And so, I rushed back home as quickly as I could after I cleaned everything up, and like I said, fed my face and ran downstairs, and we got some show notes together, and then here we are. But yeah, how was your day? What was your day like today?
My day was incredible. I want to talk about commerce a little bit.
Yeah?
Yeah. You've been to my house. I have. Twice. And this might be comically understated. I have a lot of fucking windows in my house.
Me too. Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, there's like a lot of natural light.
It's an unusual amount of windows. And I live in an area that gets hot. So to combat the outrageous bills, I thought, well, let's take a look at upgrading those windows a little bit because they're old. And they're the kind that have vinyl stuff on the outside, which look like bacon strips because they're like melting and warping and stuff like that. So they're like wavy and they don't do good to protect against water penetration and stuff like that, particularly when the house settles and the stucco cracks and like it's usual house stuff. Now, even knowing that I have a ton of windows in my place, what would you imagine if a contractor came out and bid what it would cost to upgrade the windows to a standard, like not privacy glass or any of that? Like, what do you think the cost would be to have a direct replacement for the windows?
Weirdly, I have a little bit of a background in this because I used to work for a window company. And I mean, to be fair, I was 22 to 23 years old in that time frame. So it's been a while. It's been half my life ago. But I end down in Rockland and Roseville, California. I worked for a company that we did retrofit windows. And so I do know that there is a large variety of different types that you can get for retrofit.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you pull the mic about a fist away from you?
Yeah, I'm actually right there.
I know, but like further away because it sounds like you're underwater.
Oh, okay. Like that?
Yeah, better.
Perfect.
Way better.
Okay.
Cool.
I know that there's different types of different grades of retrofit windows, whether you're going with like Marvin wood frame windows that are really pricey, or even like some nice carbon fiber ones. But oftentimes the people tend to go with a variety of vinyl retro windows, whether they be Milgard or Viking, or there's different price points on each one. I was never in the bidding of how much those things cost. I was in the installing portion of it. But if I was to venture a guess based off of 23-year-old memory of how this went down in a marketplace back then to now, and the amount of windows you have, man, I don't want to overbid.
Try.
But I'm 60K.
Now that's what I expected. They said $139,000.
Are you
Today they said this.
Serious?
And I was like, respectfully, ma'am, that's the cost of a new house in Boulder City, Nevada. Get fucked. Like $139,000. Well, my God, let's start applying the discounts and see if we could bring it to 122. Get out. Just go. Just go. Like I frankly expected the high side of like probably $40,000 to $60,000. Like some of these windows, you know, especially sliding ones or big picture windows and stuff. Right. Like they can get up there into the couple $1,000s a piece and stuff. Like, and I'm not a contractor, right? But $139,000 and some change is like, well, sure. Let me just dig through the couch cushions and see if I can come up with $139,000. Like if I sold half of my stuff and all three of my vehicles, I don't think I could come up with $139,000. Like it was absurd. So,
wait, like what was? How did the math work on that? Like,
no idea. She did it in a fancy iPad program that's their in-house savings finder software stuff that they were touting, and I just kind of smiled like, yeah, go measure them all, sure. Like what's the aggregate look like? You know, well, you're in luck because she knows nothing about me other than my first name. You're already pre-approved for 0% financing. Like, just go. Like just leave your card and go. Like, yeah, sure, I'll be in touch. Like,
did they even give you options on different types of windows?
I didn't let her get that far. That was just our industry standard line with whatever the industry standard frame is that's not aluminum or vinyl. So I think the material they use is like it's akin to like Trex decking for like people's outdoor decks. It's like wood and polymer plastic, like in a hybrid kind of
composite of some kind.
Yeah, it's a composite frame or something. So I was like, well, that would definitely hold up in the heat better than the vinyl stuff. But at the end of the day, we're $100,000 off my expectations for an entry level installation here for all these windows. Like, kindly get fucked.
Yeah.
So I gave her a bottle of water and sent her on her way and just started laughing maniacally. That's pretty much how my day went. I had a contractor come over, and the reason is there was a car show I went to, and it was like enter your name for you could win free window installations for, you know, whatever. And I was like, Windows, cool, because I've been thinking about this for a while. And what a joke. $139,000 for Windows. We're way off. So
way off.
That's how my day is gone.
I would not have, like, I thought I was going to be like overstepping by going, I don't know, 80,000 just because you've got some big windows and a lot of them.
Yep.
And so, you know, it's like, but I don't want him to go, oh, no, not that much. It was, you know, so I kind of underbid a little bit. And wow. I mean, like, that's insanity.
Yeah. Like, that is the equivalent cost of what my house sold for in 2013. Just to replace the windows. That would be the entire house. I'm like, something seems askew. So,
yes.
It was comical. That was my experience with modern commerce for people that are like, this guy doesn't know any better. Let's just hit him with the maximum amount of money we can dream up and see if he bites on it. So that's about how that went.
Any other bids on that? Like,
that was my first one, so we're off to a sterling start. But no.
Wow.
No, I was just like, that's so much money. So, I don't think I'll be using them for stuff. Just throwing that out there. But, you know, it's one of those things where, like, summer's very real here, and I have to account for, plan, and start to execute on all the major projects that I have to do either before the summer or just after. And I thought you'd get a kick out of that. So, yeah, that's how that went. Otherwise, work is work, and I'll probably have more of a opinion on that in the next week or two. But right now, it's just chaos. It's not even controlled chaos. It's just chaos. So,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My next couple of work weeks are going to be kind of weird as well. I've got this week is a regular but fully packed week.
Mm-hmm.
And then going into the following week, I will be traveling as of next Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I won't be here next Tuesday because I'm traveling, and it's also my 20-year wedding anniversary.
Congrats.
So, thank you. And so I'm going to be traveling down to your neck of the woods, and we're going to be staying at one of the MGM properties for a couple of days. We'll obviously probably have a chance to have dinner with you and hang out, and then we're headed down to Lake Havasu, where we're going to spend a couple of days at a resort down there, visit with some family, and then I will be actually working my first tattoo convention since prior to COVID.
Yeah.
And then we will be coming back, be home for a couple of days, and then we're driving to Boise for a week.
Yeah.
And we'll be in Boise for a week, where I'll be doing a guest spot at Black Eagle Tattoo down in Boise. But and we're actually going to be my son's doing mock legislation down there with some at the Capitol with some legislators for school, and then we are going to be coming home with a new dog.
It's a lot.
So it's a lot.
A lot to unpack. What are some of the things you're looking most forward to? Because obviously, it's like before the pandemic means at least 6 years ago, right? That you've done a tattoo convention. So that's kind of like it's been a while.
To be honest, the last one I tattooed at, I don't even remember. Like I try to think about which one I tattooed at, but it was prior to me. I think it was like right at the time that I started doing my own.
Yeah.
So to actually work a tattoo convention where I actually sat down and tattooed there all weekend, it's probably been 7, maybe 8 years. Wow. And now I'm like, I started doing tattoo conventions and running them. So I wasn't actually tattooing them. I was actually the one conducting the whole thing. And I did 2 of those for a couple of years, and then 1 for another year after that. And then COVID hit, and then I never went back to it again. And honestly, a lot of people have been asking me to step up again and start doing them because they really enjoyed my conventions. Mm-hmm. And my heart's just not in it. The divide that happened in the culture of tattooing because of COVID, and the political divide that's happened in the last, 5 years. And just because at the time I was doing it, I had kind of gotten bullied into doing them due to the nature of my popularity within the tattoo community within the Pacific Northwest. It just made sense. People knew I knew everybody. I was friendly. I was smart. They knew I had all the proper skill sets to do it, and I just kind of got pushed into it. And I never really had planned it. But then after having done it, I realized I was really good at it. And did not enjoy it. I enjoyed it to a degree that thriving in that level of stress seems to be something that I'm good at.
Yeah.
But once I was forced into the opportunity basically to not do it anymore, I jumped on the chance. And it was due to the fact that when I'm not tattooing or running my business or anything regarding that, drawing or whatever the case may be, every waking minute was dedicated for an entire year from the time we stopped doing one convention till the following year when we did the other one. And it was robbing me of any spare time I had, any ability that I had to deal with, family stuff or anything like that. And they were helpful and they went along for the ride, but it really was exhausting to the point where I just did not see a benefit in it unless the payout was big enough. And even then, like, I'm sacrificing a lot for that payout.
Yeah.
And ultimately, is it worth it? So I've been kind of bullied a lot. in the last, I use the term bullied loosely. A lot of people have been asking, begging, pleading, and trying to coax me back into that life. And I've rejected it all the way through, going, no way, never again. I'm happy just sitting in my corner. Now, tattoo conventions since COVID have come back up and are now back on the tattoo convention roll. And I just blurred out my camera. But I couldn't get myself to actually come back in and do them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And because I just the political divide, the divide of the COVID stuff, there was a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of strong opinions, a lot of rivalries and things that were created. But also just I fell out of love, and this is going to come to a surprise to anybody listening to this in the industry if they are. I fell out of love with the community, the tattoo community. I fell out of love with the culture. And it was because I saw such a superficiality to it when my whole life since COVID has been invested in politics and policy and actually making a difference on a much bigger scale, and things that actually affect our real lives. The superficiality of the lifestyle of tattooing became so glaringly apparent to me that I had a hard time going back in with a fake smile and going, yeah, let's all be cool guys together,
right.
And so it was really hard. A lot of people, there's been one in town where I live that's been happening every year, and everyone keeps asking me why I'm not getting a table or why I'm not working it. And I was like, I just don't have the heart for it anymore. I'll show up one day, like on a Saturday or Sunday, just to shake some hands of friends that are in the area, buy some supplies, maybe enter in a couple of tattoos to contests, steal some awards, and leave. And but that's all I have bandwidth for, as far as tattoo conventions, and I just haven't had it in me. And this is the first time, and it was because my aunt runs the nautical resort down in Lake Havasu. Mm-hmm. She's the operational manager of the entire place, and when we were down there in June, she brought up the fact that she's actually hosting a tattoo convention there through another guy like me, like a tattooer guy who approached her about using their venue. And she didn't know anything about it. So I, having a ton of experience, went, let me help you through this, because there's going to be a lot of things that you're not going to think of that I want to make sure this thing goes on without a hitch. And it's the Havasu Legends, and it's run by a guy, I think his name's Gator. They all have weird, funny names like that, Gator. But it's kind of an old school show. It's got a lot of like Judy Parker and Jay Brown and the checkerboard guy and Gil the Drill Monty is going to be there. Like, just the kind of old biker school, that element to it. But I did notice that a couple of people that I do know from like Utah and stuff are going to be there. So it's going to be actually kind of fun. And so I got a booth. So at the end of our journey, while we're down in Havasu that weekend, I'm actually going to be working the tattoo convention for the first time, mainly just to keep an eye on it for my aunt. And also because it might be fairly lucrative because it's happening in Lake Havasu during spring break. Yeah. So there's going to be a bunch of 22-year-old drunk bro idiots, and I'm going to take all of their money and then head back home with it. So, my wife wants nothing to do with that, so she's going to go hang out at my grandma's while I'm doing that. But I do have, some friends that are going to be there. So, and it's a smaller one, so I can dip my toe in. It's going to be warm. There's poolside. I'll have kind of vacation vibes to it, so it won't feel like work so much. So I think it's actually a good kind of transition back in if I decide to go back into the convention scene again.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. Part of me is drawn to it, and the other part of me is like, you've been there, done that.
Right.
You have a ton of awards. You've got all the awards you could possibly need in a couple of cases at the shop, right? You've done it. You've traveled around to conventions all over the country. You've done this thing. Do you need to continue? You're pushing 50. Do you want to keep going in at that pace?
Right.
And I'm not sure that I do. I'm not sure that I want to go at that pace, but maybe every once in a while, if the convention is right and it's more of a vacation convention rather than a work and building industry type of situation.
Yeah.
I think that might be more the case, but yeah, it's going to be interesting.
But you're at least optimistic about it. This isn't something that's like the Anchorage Invitational Outdoor Tattoo Festival in January, or the
right.
Phoenix First Annual Hot August Nights Tattoos Outdoor, where it's just miserable. There's a ton of pissed people. Nothing's going right.
It's not Sturgis.
Yeah. Sturgis. Like, I've been invited to Sturgis. I ride a motorcycle, and that automatically qualifies me for Sturgis, by the way.
It does, yeah.
There's a lot of people that are like, dude, do you ever do that? I'm like, nope. I don't like the ethos of those types of gatherings. I just don't. Like, I'm cool. I don't like riding with a group larger than 3, because inevitably, especially people you don't know, someone has to do something crazy. Always pull a wheelie and they fall over, dump their bike, someone that's new that's trying to keep up doesn't know how to ride very well, and something tragic happens. It's just not, but then to be surrounded by non-self-aware, hyper egotistical midlife crisis guys on bikes that are very different from the one I ride just doesn't sound in the least bit appealing. So
no, I've never had a single bit of draw to Sturgis at all.
It's just not.
On top of it being loud and obnoxious, there's also motorcycles.
Yeah.
And those are the least loud, obnoxious thing at Sturgis. It's true. So I want nothing to do with that lifestyle or anything remotely connected to it. Like, people always ask me, did you watch Sons of Anarchy? And I'm like, not even a single episode. And they're like, really? You don't want to watch? I was like, no, I came up in tattooing under Hell's Angels in the biker scene and community. I know what that's like. And I have removed myself so far from it because it was so distasteful in every capacity.
Oh, yeah.
I want nothing to do with it. Like, I was just talking to my client today, and her parents were part of and I'm not going to mention the name of the biker gang, but they were part of a biker gang. And she had to grow up in that. And it was just awful for her because it was far more important than her and her childhood, because that took precedent over everything else. And that's pretty much the going kind of feeling I get from anybody that I know, even currently. Like, the shop, my tattoo shop, gets approached all the time for like charity events that are kind of biker affiliated, like they're trying to raise money for kids or of somebody who died or something. Yeah, but
it's a toy run for charity, bro.
Yeah, and the fact that they won't do it unless there's a run attached to it, and they get pissed if it's just like a meetup at Curly's bar and everyone's supposed to show up and there'll be hot dogs and hamburgers and a band, and we're trying to raise money for this family that is in desperate need, and they're like, yeah, but there's no run. Right. They're like, no, there's not. We just didn't organize a run, but you guys are all invited. But I thought it was affiliated with the club. Well, it is loosely, kind of a group club situation. Well, I'm not going to go unless there's a run. I was like, well, and then so I stopped. I was like, if there's a run attached to it, I'm not I won't be a part of it because they make it so much about them and their cool factor of riding a bike.
The ego.
About me. Yeah, the ego.
It's the ego.
And I'm
like
it has nothing to do with you.
That's what car culture has become too. Like big time.
Yeah.
Like I'm starting to dip my toes into smaller invite only like car festivals and events and stuff this summer, gearing up to Hot Import Nights that I'm registered for in the summer. And I haven't done this in 20 years. And I don't really care for people, especially large crowds of them. Hate to say that. Shocking to those listening. I have a very tight group of friends and that's about it, you know. And it's always kind of been that way. But yeah, the second, prime example this weekend, it was a Nissan and Infiniti invite only thing. There's some cars and prizes. They had a Twinkie eating contest, so it was not like, you know, a bunch of like flex your car types of shit. And it was like, well, this would be a cool chance to meet some other people and have fun. And it was, by and large. But there were people that were rolling back from Cars and Coffee that hear tell of a car show on top of a parking structure owned by a casino. So they all started rolling in with their, you know, Mustangs and Civics. And, you know, you got people at the gate that's like, do you have a ticket to get in? Because you can walk around and check out the stuff and the festivities for like $10. And that goes to the organizer and all the sponsors because they had like taco stands and, you know, Slurpee machine stands and stuff like that up there, T-shirt vendors.
Vendors and such, yeah.
Yeah, and all Nissans and Infinitis only. And there were some dudes that were furious. Like, what do you mean I can't park my car here? Like, I got better than any of the shit that's parked in this parking lot. What are you talking about? It's a car show. Yeah, I should clearly be in. Look at my car. Look at how great I am. They're like, yeah, but that's like a classic Chevrolet, and this is a Nissan and Infiniti only thing. So we're just going to ask that you just park on the level right below us.
It's a subsect of import cars.
Correct. Like,
and how do you not see that? How do you
it's
displace yourself?
It's on the banner too. It's like right in front of you. And the guy's like got a little cash box and his big Nissan hat on, and he's holding wristbands, and he's just trying to get like, hey man, that's what this is. You got to be registered for this. And I could see this happening from, you know, 30, 40 feet away over the rail. And the guy's just like, you know, looking around. You could tell his ego's just getting super bruised. So he turns around, and instead of parking down below, what he likes to do is light the tires up and lay 2 patches of rubber all the way down all 3 tiers of the parking structure. Totally smokes out the vendor booth that's at the top of the ramp with hot dogs in it, and is just furious. And then the promoter has to get on the microphone like, hey guys, sorry about that. It's his first time ever doing this. He doesn't want to piss off the people that allowed him to have a car show for his first time up there. And we're all here to try and support that and meet new friends, which to that end was highly successful. But that's one guy with a big ego. Like, most of the scene is lots of guys with lots of big egos, and it's dog shit. Like, I don't like doing it anymore. I just don't.
Yeah.
So for what it's worth, it's been like rediscovering the fuel on the ego fire that is now social media is even infinitely worse and more in your face about it. And I think that's an interesting but not unexpected expectation of what I thought I would get out of these. So it's been a little bit of a learning journey this year for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did we get off on this topic?
Well, I was asking you what you were looking forward to in your re-entry into the tattooing convention scene after so long. But obviously this is the other half of this trip is your anniversary and stuff, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited. 20 years is, especially in modern era, is a big deal, but 20 years happy, 20 years excited to do another 20 more. 20 years, we're at the end of 20 years. Not only do we love each other, but we actually like each other still. And that our kids actually see that we like each other and that our kids actually like us. It's a pretty rare thing, and I recognize that, and I wish I could do more for her at 20. I'm hoping to do a big one at 25. You know, getting her out of town and out of the cold, I think will suffice for 20. But at 25, I hope to do something more grandiose for her. She deserves it. I've got a ride or die, like for real.
Yeah.
And she's awesome, and 20 years is a big deal, and I'm very excited to see what the next 20 have for us, because we've done so much in the 20 already that I don't even like. If we relax for the next 20 more, I wouldn't be too mad about it. But yeah, it's been. I highly doubt that. She's way too motivated. We're probably going to the gym tonight after this,
Sure.
and then, and then she's in the constant battle arena of fighting every evil that the state of Idaho has to throw. She's out there with a sword and a shield and a microphone, and pissing off half the state, where we end up having to have meetings just to calm people down, and the other half the people think we're feds, and yeah, so it's we had to have a meeting on yesterday about some of that stuff.
I mean, with the amount of conversation around that alone, like, do the people that matter at least believe that you're not a federal agent at this point, or is the question, the jury's still out? Like,
no. What it turns out, what we've come to the conclusion of, is that the smart people know that we're not.
Sure.
And we've come to the conclusion that there are a lot of dumb people that are in this arena that have a lot of emotion with not a lot of intelligence to back it up. So they will take a situation that on its face and on its surface is very, like, there's a good intention behind it, but then when it doesn't line up with their comprehension level, they can get fed dumb information and they'll eat it up, because they're such in a state of kind of continued paranoia based off of a lot of things that they had a righteous reason to be paranoid over 2020 and for the last 4 years, but they don't know how to regulate it. Pardon me, due to intelligence. That dumb people have a hard time regulating when the stop button of when things get absurd. Yeah, we live in a crazy world and crazy stuff is happening. Yeah, but there's a point when you go, okay, that's a bridge too far, and they don't have the ability to not cross that bridge. Yeah. And we have found that those are the people over the course of the last 5 years that have good intentions, that start off as really good people, that we understand their motivations, understand why they're passionate about this particular topic or another. But when they cross the threshold of going into absurdity and you go, hold on, that doesn't make sense, let's talk about it. And they go, no, you're a bad guy for going against what I believe right this second.
It's been my observation that some people have been in the fight long enough that they kind of forget what they're fighting for in a lot of ways. And, and
they're just looking for the next rush.
It's a soundbite or a 30-second video or a thumbnail or a keyword or some point that reinforces a feeling more than the basis of the ideology they're defending. And it becomes, Trump is very orange and bad and very orange and bad. And we heard that for 12 years. Well, does your toe hurt? Trump.
Yeah.
What? But it's good you're identifying these people.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing, is that after a while, like we had a talk with a gentleman yesterday who was very mad at us for a couple of months because he went off he was following that cowboy sheriff dude, right, and got really mad at us because we wouldn't support him. And then also he doesn't see the Groyper issue, so therefore it doesn't exist.
Sure.
And started getting pretty arrogantly beratey, and he's an old boomer guy who just eats up all of the clickbait stuff that gets thrown at boomers. He eats it up and then regurgitates it in Telegram channels. And
I call this
did you see this?
I call this move cosmopolitics.
Yeah.
And it's people that drink up sound bites from John Oliver the night before, or they read something in the grocery store line that's some salacious headline in the tabloid media, and then they put 2 or 3 keywords around a premise and just puke it back out to all their friends in social media as gospel. And it's like, actually, that's just cosmopolitics to me. And I've been criticizing that for more than a decade. So and it happens on both sides. Big time.
It does. And what it boils down to, especially on our side of things or my side of things, the people that I tend to group with, the problem that seems to be connected, it's the byproduct of that lack of intelligence, I think, is a beautiful word called discernment.
Sure.
And they do not have it.
Yep.
And most of them don't. And they need bumpers and guide rails on their discernment. And when they hit those bumpers and guide rails, they react. And they're not happy about it.
Yep.
So when somebody with discernment shows them, hey, this actually isn't true, let me pull you back a bit, then they have a reaction due to the fact that it's a cognitive dissonance situation where their momentum is so going in one direction, they don't have intellectual breaks.
Yeah.
Where they can actually apply intellectual breaks to stuff and go, hold on, let me evaluate this. Let me assess this.
Yeah.
Let me figure out whether or not the angles on this prove it to be true. Where did the source come from? Am I just reacting because I'm an emotional being? They don't have the ability to do that. And so that's the people that typically go out of their way to call me and Aaron feds or whatever the case may be. But we ended up having a discussion with a gentleman who was very much one of these people. And after a 2-hour lunch with him yesterday, it turned out that he realized that we were telling the truth about a lot of stuff, and that he was being told a lot of lies about us. And I don't know if it will end up fruitful in the long run, but it seemed to be, I mean, there were hugs given at the end of the meeting yesterday.
That's all you can do, right? Is like, look, I'm showing you enough respect to plead my case by showing you how things really are. This is really me. This is really the understanding that I have, and this is really the truth, right? Yeah. And so what you do with that is kind of ball in your court and stuff, but all I can do is give you a hug and promise you I'm not going to lose an ounce of sleep over how you feel about me either way. Good day, sir.
The best way to do that is not necessarily plead your case and say, I'm not a Fed because of this, this, and this, and this. It is, what would my motivation be? Like, for the things that I'm going at, like, I need you to tell me what you think my motivation would be for going after groypers in this town, or for not supporting this particular candidate. You've ascribed motivation to me, or were told what my motivations were, but have you actually thought about it? Yes. Talking to me right now, have you actually put any thought as to, like, why would you support this guy? Why would you not support this guy? And why are you going after these groypers? What is it in it for you? It's like
calling an AR-15 an assault rifle. It's like, we have just imbued an inanimate object with intent.
Yes.
It's no more assault than this assault cell phone I'm holding. Right. So, yeah. Absolutely. I get it.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that goes so above and beyond. I sent you a clip this week.
Yeah, you did.
And I didn't have a chance to explore it, but it kind of falls right into this category.
It's a great segue.
And at first it was salacious. I was like, wow, look at this video, right? And I didn't really have a chance to go in and explore it any further after I sent it to you. And the reason I sent it to you was because it was close to home for you.
Yeah.
And it was in your neck of the woods. So it's like, hey, check this guy out. Look into this guy. Maybe it's something we could do a story on.
Yeah.
And outside of that, I didn't have a chance to really look into it any further. I don't know who this guy is or what he does. However, this video has been circulating, and you made some pretty valid points on it when we were discussing it earlier. And so describe the video that I sent you and who this gentleman is.
Yeah, so we're talking about Senator Sagerblom, Tick Sagerblom from Nevada, District 3. A 76-year-old lifelong deep Democratic politician, actively serving. So in the video, he's coming out of what appears to be a session out of a state building, and there's a lot of media, like independent media members with cell phones and GoPros and cameras and stuff, and they're kind of just attacking him like you'd imagine the paparazzi would attack at a celebrity stepping out of a limousine at a red carpet event, right? And the commentary that's audible anyway is they address Senator Sagerblom and say, "Are you a minor attracted person?" Which is sort of the left's PC terminology for pedophile. And this 76-year-old guy, kind of stumbling almost backwards, is like, "Yeah, wait, well, what's your problem with
Drag queens?
That's it. What's your problem with drag queens?" Thinking that they're just attacking him for the fact that he's been in defense of the drag queen story hour stuff, which has been going on probably for 2 or 3 years now as like a really great thing to put in front of kids and this and that and the other thing. However you land on that, it's extremely outrageous one way or the other. Yeah. And I think for my personal side of this, I think it's highly offensive, deeply inappropriate, and should be illegal. I think
100%.
Kids are going to be kids and should remain kids until they're legally adults, and then they can choose to be or do whatever the hell they want. But that's inappropriate, badly, yeah. And it's
being force fed and pushed.
Yeah, and he's one of the pushers in defense of the media during this clip. He's one of the pushers. So what happens next is the narrative that he agrees to being a minor attracted person. And a lot of these people basically grabbed the headline because he was stumbling around and was like, yeah, and then like whatever. Now, by letter of what he said, if he understood the question, didn't seem surprised by the barrage of questions and stuff, he should be immediately incarcerated. And I think that's deeply fucked up. I really do.
Yeah.
My take is that I don't think that's what he thought he was answering the question for, because the predicate behind him stumbling sideways and saying yeah was about something she didn't even ask. And also
the clip starts there too.
The clip starts there and ends shortly after, almost like
he could have been answering a different question that wasn't even there.
And I'm like, I don't think this guy was answering the question we saw that he was asked, or if he did, I'm not sure that he knew what he was talking about immediately while being kind of
bombarded with, you know, it was like 7 angry moms screaming, are you a pedophile at him, or why, you know, there was like 5 to 7 different questions being thrown at him at one time, basically. And he was obviously off kilter. Am I going to defend a Democrat for any reason? No, I fundamentally disagree with almost everything that they say and do. And then party lines, they're not my team. Sure. However, this guy is definitely in defense of Drag Queen Story Hour, which I have a fundamental problem on. And if he's in defense of that, I think he's a gross human being. I think that he's degenerate and should not be near children, and probably should have his search engine looked into.
I think so. I think, but as a public servant, all of that should be like completely open book to anyone that wants to research it. 100%. All I'm saying is I'm not certain. My reticence to this
and went and did that kind of what's in Office Space. When the guy makes the game, the jump to conclusions, Matt.
Yeah. It's a jump to conclusions, Matt. And it feels it feels like somebody was fishing for a salacious headline, and it worked because it's been making the rounds, and I've seen this from 4 or 5 different outlets, and I kind of just smirked and went, I was really hoping for a little bit more or better than that from the media people that are producing content like this, because to me that's a bit misleading. Now it's because I've been hardened to not trust anything I see from any form of media over the last few years. But that said, what I did want to do, and if I was to do an expose on Tick Segerblom, I believe it would probably take me 3 or 4 hours, and I think this segment's going to be a little bit long. But what I thought is, while we're questioning the man, we could at least take a look at the politician. And what I've done is I've aggregated all of the bills that he himself has sponsored, not just what he voted on. What he voted on would be a 4-part series, right? There's a lot of legislation that comes in and out, and there's a lot of things that affect Nevada. So what we see in the most condensed pieces I can give you is a lot of marijuana and cannabis legislation, and that I'll get to why that's important. But SB 140 and SB 487, essentially the key focuses of both of these bills are cannabis reform, a lot of infrastructure, economic development from marijuana industry, and a social equity for cannabis business people. What he was really pushing for was not just the legalization, which eventually passed in 2016, but also like places for tourists and residents to use marijuana in a social setting. And it was to create broader infrastructure for cannabis tourism in the state. Now, I'm going to get to why that's important to Segerblom, the politician, in a minute, but just on its face, like Nevada State, people don't realize, still has legalized prostitution, by the way. Like, and the only reason it's outlawed where Las Vegas is in Clark County is because of the entire, both sides of the aisle, the entire state's leadership basically understanding that human trafficking and sex slave trades would become commonplace if it were allowed to thrive in a place like Las Vegas. Now, that said, pretty sure it does exist. It's just kind of hush hush and off the books and whatever. Now, these are places I don't know how to get in touch with, and I'm not going to do a reporter in the field deep dive from my own safety, and I kind of don't give a fuck. But for sex workers and now legalization of marijuana, the potential second and third tier addiction levels for humankind that are born in Nevada State would become rampant, right? Especially with marijuana. Why? Because it impacts drug where sex is already available, and gambling is already available. These are not easy habits to break for people with predispositions to addictive personality types. Now, that's you working on you to fix that. That's not me to prescribe. I'm not a doctor or a lawmaker. But it's a dangerous game to play. Can you see where that's going? Like suddenly you have the infrastructure to support yet another probable highly addictive vice, right? So he also...
Wait, real quick, before you get into it, what's the spelling of his name?
It is Segerblom. His name's Richard, but he goes by Tick Segerblom. So the second piece that he spent a lot of our time and money on is airport and public namings, right? So he was involved in a high-profile bill to change McCarran Airport's name to what I would deem as a controversial former senator, Harry Reid, right? So now McCarran is known as Harry Reid International Airport. And, you know, the key focus for what should be on paper is community identity, honoring progressive leaders and party line toters in his party, and addressing historical issues through public symbolism. Now, I'm going to unpack a lot of this from my perspective when we're done here, but I'm just going to tell you what the narrative was supposed to be by this. And this is just me talking here, so it is what it is. Another trend that pops up in things that he sponsored is around taxation and economic development. At least that's the way it's framed in SB 421. Ideally, the tax on transient lodging was aimed to revise provisions governing the tax in Clark County and focusing on a system that could keep pace with growing tourism. Now, the tourism is pretty crucial to Las Vegas's economy. Consequently, it's also pretty critical to Reno's economy in the north half of the state. So The takeaways here when reading it were around taxation reform, economic development, tourism, and the arts, because he put a lot of emphasis into the art districts. The fourth area of trend for TIC is around alcohol and drug abuse programs. So we can't have a predicate without a subject. So the key focuses of AB 372 and SB 181, both sponsored by him in 2017, wanted to revise provisions related to drug and alcohol abuse programs and enhancing access to treatment and prevention services. So feels a little double dippy, but I'll get into my critique of these things a little bit later. The key takeaways that were written about were centered around public health, addiction treatment, and substance abuse prevention at large in the state of Nevada. The final thing he really got behind as far as recurring themes was advocacy for civil liberties and social justice, right? This is pretty much a Democratic Party line tote. This is no different than it is in California. This is no different than it is
anywhere else.
Washington. Like we've seen all these.
The only difference here in Idaho is that Republicans do it because they're actually Democrats.
Yeah.
So, but he's at least a Democrat saying that. So
the hidden pieces that probably weren't thought through from his party lines was ensuring that all donations and spending were appropriately reported and accessible to the public through campaign finance transparency. And that would have been really fun to see if that was actually passed. But essentially what we take away from this, from what the public was fed, was the progressive social issues, economic growth and taxation reform, public health and safety, and some governmental accountability, but certainly transparency, right? So I'll give you kind of my take on it. Like the strong push around the cannabis piece and the tourism and the arts, it is kind of governmental overreach in a lot of ways. I think that a shitload of regulation like that stifles business growth and innovation for anything outside of the cannabis space. Never mind the principal donors in every single one of his campaigns are all associated to the cannabis growth and development in Nevada State. Every single one of them.
Cannabis lobby is a huge lobby in certain states.
And it makes a ton of money.
Just sucking off. Yeah.
So
he's sucking off the tit of that. So
laws that regulate and or deregulate cannabis consumption and create lounges, that's kind of burdensome to other business owners around those lodges that may or may not want that in their neighborhood, just as an example. It also discourages a shitload of investment in those areas. And it limits economic opportunity in a massive way because it would become a takeover. And this is where you would start to see the already pretty divided sections of Vegas, maybe not as renowned as the boroughs in New York, but they would become, it'd be like walking into a different country line. You've seen it in Seattle, maybe not recently, but it's even worse than you remember. So that's one thing. I'm not, just from the framework, I have big disagreements with that, and the passing of stuff like that for recreational use for tourism too. It's yet another vice, as I already kind of alluded to. The policies like those that aimed at increasing taxes, especially in the tourism sector, crushes the financial strain on businesses already, because it also moves up what they have to pay for rent, where they don't get to serve the tourists anymore. So when you take a city that's based exclusively on tourism, that's also trying to recover from the pandemic, I don't see how a proposed tax hike is going to lead to a ton more spending by consumers outside of our state. It makes it an extremely less attractive destination for tourists, particularly if the first bill passed, but we're just saying for the sake of saying. For the social justice and criminal justice reforms, I think some reforms in the criminal justice system are important. The policies go way too far that he's written about, and it's thematic that pops up over and over again. It favors criminals over victims. A bill that makes it not legal for employers to ask about criminal background checks would encourage individuals with violent or serious criminal histories to re-enter the workforce without any vetting. That's an endangerment to public safety. I don't give a shit who you are. Like,
oh my gosh.
And that wasn't nested in there. That was titled in one of the two bills I mentioned. Do you live in this
district, by the way?
No, I don't.
He's not your, okay.
No, he's
not your representative.
He's in the Valley. Yeah. So endangering public safety, I'm not a big fan of. Just saying.
No.
The the marijuana lounges part of that in the public consumption. Again, normalizing drug use in Nevada, it leads to increased addiction, mental health issues, public safety problems. The division of district lines would be greater. It puts kids and communities at risk, especially with the prevalence and availability of that stuff. And do what you do, but do it when you're 18 and up, right? I really am not a hard ass on the pot stuff. But that seems ridiculous in a city like Las Vegas. Like, to me,
I kind of weirdly am, especially oddly coming from the industry and the background that I have. But like, Idaho is the last state in the union, the last state in the United States that has kept it illegal, and it's still a felony here.
Yeah.
And they will not budge on it. And I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah, they shouldn't. They shouldn't.
Yeah. And so, and everybody asks me why. What if we legalize it and then start taxing it? And I'm like, because here's the thing. We've watched in Colorado, Washington, Oregon, California, and everywhere else, but especially those states that started out, that they implemented this, saying that the taxes were going to go to the schools and that it was going to really boom the economy by doing this. What happened in all of those states? One, the money did not go to the schools like they promised. All of a sudden, it started going into other areas. Two, it opened up the avenue. Well, on a legal level, it starts being fought at their Supreme Courts. If this is legal, then why not, psychedelics? Why not,
but also
psilocybin mushrooms?
You don't live in a state that also has active sex workers that are legalized and gambling. Like, can you see where my holy shit, that cliff is pretty steep? Is kind of
yeah. I mean, look at Oregon in and of itself. Like, they ended up legalizing everything.
Yeah.
So all drugs were legal after a matter of just a short couple of years. And the fentanyl crisis and the homeless crisis and the violent crime crisis that came along with legalizing marijuana in just a short amount of time became so rampant that they had to backtrack.
Astronomical numbers. Yeah. And yes,
to
they
the
walked
point where
back
they had
a bunch.
to backtrack.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because they're like, we opened up Pandora's box and it is, but every single state, you put cannabis stores, even the bougie ones, it doesn't matter. You're going to have an enormous amount of crime in that area. And they don't see it. They think that but they do see it. Let's be real about it. They just don't care, because if they're getting kickbacks, and also they can destabilize certain metropolitan areas, then there's control factors that then they get to create a problem, then create the solution, create a problem, then create the solution, more bureaucracy, more bureaucracy, more bureaucracy.
And that's the double dipping that I referenced as well, right? Like, how then could you not stand behind all of the, medical relief efforts and, all of the, drug abuse programs and all the stuff? You'd be funneling even more money through the same coffers into fixing a problem you naturally created only a year ago. So, the other piece that kind of irked me, I talked about the airport renaming and stuff like that. Like, the renaming of McCarran Airport to Harry Reid International Airport is a complete waste of taxpayer money and time.
100%.
Like, some critics could argue that the focus on renaming public infrastructure is a distraction from real pressing issues facing Nevadans, like economic recovery, education reform, current crime, housing costs, taxes. Like, I could go on and on and on. It is a complete waste. It's divisive and unnecessary symbolic gesture that basically honors his old school political allies. And I think it's a wild misuse of state funds that was passed, and there's no real effect for that at all. Like, so if he wants to build a statue or immortalize, Harry Reid, who is pretty divisive enough, this is a person, by the way, that voted twice in favor of deregulation just before the 2008 housing crisis. Like, was, to me, was astounding that they even let that walk. But the last piece is just the deep ties to this man, as just, these are the ones he just sponsored, by the way, not even all the ones that he voted for. The political alliances and advocacy for a ton of progressive causes, his connection to the cannabis industry, all of this is deeply conflict of interest ridden and politically motivated through and through. I think he favors certain industries, especially those that line his pockets during campaign times and that deeply support his political career, undermines the interests of all of the tax-paying constituents of Nevada State. And so I think the social and economic issues, while not surprising to me at all, are absolutely inferior to other policy priorities that impact our state. And, you know, that's my take against what we're supposed to just like buy into hook, line, and sinker with the headlines. But he's overly progressive. He's focused on symbolic or niche issues rather than broader concerns like our growth, our safety, reduction of government intervention. His policies will harm businesses, increase taxes, undermine public safety, and it's all in the name of social justice causes. So that's my take on Tick as a politician. So going back to Tick as the man, he still could be a pice of shit. I don't know. But what I saw wasn't enough for an indictment.
What you're saying is he's a pedophile.
Yeah. I don't think what I saw there was enough for an out and out indictment, but it was enough for me to definitely look deeper into an active senator.
Who he was as a person, as a senator, right? Yeah.
And I've only been familiar with 2 or 3 of those bills. Reminder, I've only been here. This is my 3rd year. So I'm still playing a little catch up from the pre-pandemic horse shit that went on. And was kind of scrambling on this election cycle because they put a lot on the ballot. And you have to read and research all of these line by line in order to understand what you're voting for. And some of it was quite confusing the way it was written and stuff. But yeah, I
would be interested to hear a follow-up statement by this guy after this big kerfuffle that he stumbled through, and he's going to defend the horror show that is the Drag Queen Story Hour. He's going to do that. But is he going to go, okay, now hold on a minute. I am defending that, which is in and of itself gross. But I misspoke. I am not a minor attracted person. Or is he going to let this slide? We'll see. I want to hear a follow-up. Because to me, like you, it did sound like it was a misstep in a gotcha moment. And he did not mean to say that in that particular moment. But he also didn't come out and deny it. We also didn't see what happened prior to that. He could have been answering a totally different question. That being said, come out with a follow-up statement. You know, it's been nearly probably a week since that happened or close to it. And follow up with...
My pushback on that is he's 76 years old, and the game to play is... I didn't even know that made its rounds on social media like it was a big deal. I'm not justifying or dignifying you with an answer to a question that's obviously fucking stupid. Let's move on to the real question. And that's typically how the Dems play this stuff in an era where they have nothing to fight against other than they I think learned a little bit from the Republican Party chasing down all these. Wait a minute. That's not what I said. No, I didn't do that. What are you guys talking about? That's not, you're taking that out of context. And suddenly we've spent 5 minutes not getting to issues that matter. I think they're a little more mature in that he'll probably play it like he never knew that was a soundbite, would be my guess.
Yeah. And you might be right that there's a bit more
to what you said though. I do too. I mean, I want to hear a rebuttal too. I'd like to come out and be like, well, clarify that then. And then we'll tie it to the drag queen breakfast hour stuff that you're pushing. Like, why is this okay for kids? You know, it's fine if it's a thing for adults. Obviously, Nevada State hosts a shitload of adult debauchery. A shitload of.
I saw a stand-up comedian actually address the Drag Queen Story Hour, and he goes, "Don't we all kind of recognize that doing children's birthday parties is a shit gig? Like, why are they doing this? like on top of it just being a bad, protocol to set to say this is entertainment for children at all. Shouldn't they be kind of like your agent got you you're going to sit down and read to children at a library?
And maybe they just need a good advocate like Tick Segerblom or Casey Anthony maybe, but
Casey Anthony might be a really great advocate for this. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great point though. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a shit gig. Why
doing
are you
casino
even
club
bothering?
rooms with drunk golfers and kids' birthday parties are like comedians' worst nightmares. That and college campuses.
It's like the big 90s band that now is only doing county fairs because that's all they can get.
Yeah.
Like, is that really what drag queens are out to do? It's like, it's the only gig I can get. I can only get a local library in a small town.
Yeah.
Where there's a horde of angry mothers outside. Like, why would you even bother with that unless it is intentionally being pushed for an agenda? It makes zero sense. You're going to make tips and money, and you can say and do whatever you want and throw your balls around all over a bar where everyone wants you there. But in this particular case, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to do that. Like, we had a big thing with a friend of ours that wrote a story about drag queens in the park here in front of kids. It was a huge national thing. The guy ended up suing her and won. And it was preposterous, even though he was the one dancing in front of, provocatively, in front of a whole stage of children. Yeah. And when that was pointed out, his reputation was hurt so badly that he sued her and won almost like $1.73 million off of my friend. And it's preposterous. This shouldn't be a thing. Drag Queen Story Hour shouldn't be a thing. Yeah. Drag queens, like, I've been to drag shows. I've spent a lot of time on Capitol Hill. I had drag queen friends on Capitol Hill. Right. They don't want to be around kids. There's no kids on Capitol Hill for a reason. They don't want them there. They would laugh even 8 years ago. They would have laughed at the idea of doing drag in front of
children,
kids at a park or at a school they would have been like, no. We don't even want to be around children. Why would you want so there's something bigger behind this to push because it's happening everywhere. Yeah, it's not just popping up.
It's another plot point to say that anyone in opposition of this is just angry and bad and traditionalist and hates people's rights and in favor of social justice. We need to bow down and let them do what they want. And I don't think that most of the people that participate in those communities are by and large even affiliated with, that's a good idea. In fact, most of them probably haven't even heard of it as an idea until it pops up in their social media feeds. So I was snickering. You mentioned the old 90s rock band that is like now playing at the county fair kind of thing, like as a reference. So there's a couple like fun places on the internet I found this week that I forgot to mention.
Oh yeah.
One of which, and I forgot the Instagram account, but this guy catches fish out of the water and then he holds the fish in front of a cell phone and plays them a Creed video and makes all the fish that he listen to a Creed music video, and they're like just like they're in shock, and then he puts them back in the water like, all right, you've paid your penance, you can go now. That's his whole channel. He just catches random. There's a trout. There's a big bass he wrestles in, and then holds up a Creed video, and the bass has to like watch this Creed video. It's incredible. It's like I've never seen anything like it. And then the other one, one of my friends is in the dating scene. God bless him. It's 2025. That's a barren wasteland. I found recently there is an Instagram account that I do know the name of. It's called Mugshotties. And it's mugshots of girls that are cute girls. Have you seen this? And all the caption under the girl's face, because it's all public information, right, is what she was arrested for. And the comments are like unbelievable. Like, I can save her. Like, like, Your Honor, she's innocent. I'll post bail right now. Like, I was like, well, if it gets that bad, dude, like, you could at least swipe right on a few of these. And it's the funniest like Instagram page I've seen in a long time. And came across it, I think through like a breakout from a Joe Rogan video or something. And I was like, this can't be real. It's real. It's hilarious. It's Mugshotties. And that was funny. But yeah, I'll try to figure that trout guy out. But he just catches fish and makes him watch Creed on his cell phone and then throws him in the water. And it's unbelievable. It's a good time. That's almost more cruel than just
killing it and eating it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Scott Stapp just with one leg on the monitor, just singing into a microphone. And that poor fish has to watch several minutes of a music video before going back in the water.
And the memory of fish, that just loops in its head for the rest of its remaining life.
One could only hope. Oh man, yeah.
Oh, man, that's genius.
As soon as you said that, that jogged a memory. I was like, oh yeah, the guy that catches fish and makes them listen to Creed. It's a good time. So we've seen some content this week too, bro. You have a movie review on Heretic.
I do.
I also dipped my toe into Disney, I guess, reproduced Daredevil.
Oh, yeah. And I have not started that yet.
The same like cast and all that stuff. Now we know from prior podcasts, I don't have a Disney Plus account anymore. So I found these episodes on the internet. We'll say that. But I was surprised. It's pretty good. It seems, even though Kevin Feige's behind it and stuff, that this, they do make some callbacks to the shitty version of Daredevil, or when it started getting shitty, which they probably shouldn't have. In the greater universe around Wilson Fisk and stuff, because they did another spinoff series called Echo or something. It was also not very good. And they should have just maybe not made some callbacks to that and just let it die, because this is supposed to be Daredevil Born Again, like redone, but they're redoing it as like what would have been the Netflix season 4 version of it. And they retained some of the Netflix writers from what I understand. But way better than I expected it to be for a Disney house production of a Marvel IP.
There's a lot of worry. There was a lot of worry that they were going to butcher this thing.
Yeah, and I've only seen there's only 2 episodes out, I think. There might be more, but those are the first 2 I saw. So far, pretty good. Still gritty, still dark. I like Charlie Cox as Daredevil a lot.
Yeah, he's really good.
It's very, very good. It's cool they got the band back together to do this again in a lot of ways, and I am at least cautiously optimistic that I'll continue to be entertained without having, the big Disney machine shove stuff down my throat. So
I needed something new to watch. I might start that tonight. So.
Yeah, so far I'm surprised and impressed. He's not one of my favorite Marvel IP characters or anybody I'm related to, but I did watch a lot of the Netflix series through the pandemic, just like crushing time. It's pretty good. This is actually pretty good. And I'm engaged enough. Vincent D'Onofrio is still coming back as Kingpin and stuff like that. So you've got a great cast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really good writers are back in town. It seems like we're headed in the right direction.
John Barenthal is going to come back as the Punisher.
That's what I heard. Although, spoiler alert, he's not, at least in the first 2 episodes I've seen. So, but yeah. So anyway, Heretic, talk to me. What is this movie?
Okay, well, it's definitely one you'll never watch.
Okay.
It is a psychological thriller horror movie. And there was a point where
is this the one with the British guy in it? Is in all the rom-coms?
Yeah.
I saw the preview. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Hugh Grant.
That's it.
And it's got Sophie Thatcher, Chloe East, and Topher Grace actually oddly makes a very small, nearly pointless part of the movie. Like, it's almost like, why is he even here?
Topher Grace's career.
Right. And so I watched this with my daughter and her boyfriend, and I had been waiting for it to come out because it's supposed to be a horror movie that kind of explores theology. And I knew it was going to be kind of woke. Now, this is
my least favorite topics.
Right.
Yeah.
Two of my favorites. So that's why I was pretty drawn to it. But and this is an A24 film, and A24 has made a name for itself in the horror genre and psychological thriller genre. Artsy horror movies that tend to be fairly good and original. It was directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods and written by both of them. Now, I don't know anything about them. I hadn't heard of them before, but they may have done stuff that I liked in the past. I have no idea. But went into it, and it's very atmospheric. It's very beautifully choreographed, much like any other A24 horror movie film. You're pulled in by the visuals. You're pulled in by the sounds. You're pulled in by the lighting and the cinematography. They do a really good job of orchestrating a very beautiful canvas.
Yeah.
And gotta say, probably one of my favorite Hugh Grant roles. He was brilliant in this. He was absolutely genius in this. It starts off with two girl Mormon missionaries who are your stereotypical Mormon missionaries. At least one of them is. And they are very naive and just trying to get through and don't really know much about the world, but they're riding their bikes around and kind of getting made fun of. But they had set up a situation with a guy that they met at Costco who wanted to hear more. So he gave them their address, and at the end, like on their trip, they had a couple more houses to go to, and it's pouring rain, of course, and then, they show up at his house, and they're not allowed to go inside unless there's a woman there. That's protocol for Mormons. And he convinces them that his wife is baking a pie in the other room. So they come in, and before long, very quickly, they realize, because he plays kind of dumb at first, and then they realize that not only does he know about Mormonism, he knows it better than they do, and also has questions that they can't really answer, and then opens up a closet and starts pulling out different types of religious material and books, and playing with them in an artistic and very intellectual way that they start feeling uncomfortable, going, there's something more going on. Where's your wife? Can she come in here? And before you know it, you realize they're trapped in there. There is no wife. And
it's probably no goddamn pie either.
There was not pie. It was a candle. You're right. Take that back. There's a pie later on.
Okay.
They don't get to participate in it, though. They don't get pie.
Bullshit.
And they start to really explore. They get pulled into this back room that is like this done chapel. Like they have a chapel. He has a chapel inside of his house with pews and books and stuff everywhere. And
I mean, we all have those in our houses, don't we?
Yeah. And you start to recognize that this man, and he starts to let you know that he has a background in theology, that he is a theology major and has explored a lot of different, and you can tell that he is angry with the concept of God and is trying to convince these girls that God doesn't exist, and is making them make choices to get out of his house, and they are very scared. He is acting goofy and funny, but ultimately it all boils down, and he has a plan, but so do they.
Yeah.
And it was well written, and it leads you along a path that is somewhat predictable, but also somewhat not predictable. And it's more of a dialogue movie than it is anything else, with some scenes of gross, scenes of kind of gore, and scenes of kind of like spooky, satanic kind of feel to it. So, overall, I enjoyed it. Is it for everybody? No, because either it's going to bore some people or gross some people out. It is kind of right in the middle of both of those things, where you have to like psychological dialogue.
Yeah,
you also
which
have
I do.
To like,
I just don't like the subject matter you're referencing in this, which I'd probably take a pass on. But
yeah,
this Hugh Grant's best role. Like, I mean, I just watched him in The Gentleman, and he was.
He's fantastic in The Gentleman.
Pretty good as a smarmy, slimy reporter guy.
Right, and he's phenomenal in that. Yeah. However, Hugh Grant in this, I've never seen before.
Okay,
he takes on a personality, and there's some certain like aspects to the humor, and he goes into this whole diatribe about like board games. and the way that he's explaining Monopoly and how it's a copy of a copy of a copy, and using it as an analogy, and
Yeah.
There's such a dark humor that he portrays in this that I haven't seen even in The Gentleman or anything. It was very unique to Hugh Grant, and it was very refreshing, and I really enjoyed his character in this. Nice. Overall, though, the movie did have some drag points. It did have some predictability. And then the ending kind of left it a little ambiguous, and I don't like ambiguous endings.
Yeah, okay.
So ultimately, I would say, due to my personal interests kind of playing into this movie, probably gives it a higher score than a lot of other people would give it. But overall, I would say probably 7 megs on this one. It's definitely worth a watch if you're into the horror genre, or if you're into, suspense and mystery. And if you're just a Hugh Grant fan that you'd like to explore some of his weirder work, this would be one of those films.
It does feel like he's kind of making a little bit of a comeback, though, doesn't it?
Right. Yeah. Well, after the thing that happened in the 90s, he kept a kind of a low profile for a couple of years there. He did a couple of big movies, but mainly stayed on the DL because when you're married to Elizabeth Hurley, and you get caught in a car with a transsexual prostitute, and the tabloids. Yeah. That's a tough look, and the tabloids come after you pretty hard for a couple of years on that.
They do.
And he was just lucky that was like kind of at the beginnings of the internet.
Yeah.
So a lot of people seem to have kind of forgotten that.
Yeah, and but if you're married to Elizabeth Hurley or Kate Beckinsale, you kind of hang up the hat and you call it a day. And it's firm handshakes all around, and you just disappear into success, don't you?
Yeah, that's so the misstep that he took in this particular situation
feels bad.
You're like, the only thing that Elizabeth Hurley in my life doesn't have is an extra wiener. So I think I'm gonna go find one. Like, good Lord.
That's a breakout quote that was not on my bingo card this morning. I'll tell you that much. But I agree.
Yeah.
Where else are you going to find that other than a London taxi cab, I guess?
Right. I need to ask you, though, about something, because you went and watched Paradise.
Yeah. I did.
Yeah. And I want to know how you felt about it. I did get one text about it from you.
Yeah.
And I was like, right. But I don't really know how you felt about it in its entirety. Just basically a very brief kind of text. So did you watch the whole thing?
I did.
I mean, you had to with the text I got. It was like
the
about
last
one
scene
of the
last
later
episode.
episodes.
Yeah,
right. So I was like, he watched the whole thing, so I'm kind of curious as to how you felt.
So it's the first time I've really got to explore the guy that plays Xavier Collins, Sterling K. Brown, more than just a character or a cameo role as, the introspective professor, the tough cop, the empowered black guy, he's never really gotten. And if he has, it's stuff I haven't seen yet. Really like this guy a ton. Like,
he's awesome.
James Marsden is phenomenal in this, and I've been a fan of James Marsden for a long time. And
one of his better roles, though. He really came out swinging on this role.
Yeah, and he's usually kind of the quiet sidekick, good-looking, expendable character guy in everything he's ever played.
Right.
I didn't know anybody else, which was also kind of refreshing. I didn't recognize any of them. Chris Marshall, Julianne Nicholson, Sarah Shell, what is it? Sheehy, I have seen in something else, and I can't place what it is. Anyway, the cast, great. Sterling K. Brown, awesome. Like really, really fun to get to know this guy as a lead part in a series that was a super fun original concept. Like it had enough plot twists where you're like, they're not actually going to do shit. Yeah, they are actually going to make this a fallout shelter. Like, wow, this is insane. I am curious to know what the differential of we nuked ourselves versus whatever this big catastrophic event was, and how there could be survivors. What we're led to believe 2 or 3 years on after this catastrophe, and there's still people out there. The whodunit part of it was done really, really well.
Yeah.
It did fall flat with me a little bit that it was just like on the presidential assassination storyline narrative, just from point to point. It was a little underwhelming who actually was participating in that.
Responsible.
And you're like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, cool how they tied it around. But what you did mention was that's not even the storyline you're going to be paying attention to. And you're right. Yeah. Like it was a great plot driver to get us through each episode while we're actually focused on all of the characters, the universe they put them in, and like all these different unknowns that are kind of encompassing this atmosphere of really bizarre stuff that is like just on the bleeding edge of feasible, which is also fun from a sci-fi perspective. I loved it. I thought this was so cool. And I don't know anything else that's on Hulu that I ever pay attention to. It's, you know, so it's something to look forward to when they do another one. The parts that obviously you're left wondering is, why were the people that are down here chosen? Some are quite obvious, others not so much. And then what actually happened, and then why are there survivors after what happened, right? So very cool show. I'm really glad you pointed it out. I had a ton of fun with it.
Did you, when you watched that first episode, did you see it coming?
No, I had a suspicion that like things are not what they seem, like we're in a virtual world or something like that. So like it had a bit of an element of like, because there's enough triggers along the way, really microscopic ones where you're like, that's not right. This feels like a 1950. Like, it feels like Fallout.
Like where my thing was like, wow, why is the president not staying in the White House?
Right.
Why can this guy jog from his house to where the president's staying? Yes. Where are they? And that was like, that's why it wasn't, but they did it in such a way that I just went, oh well, and I just shoved it out of my head.
Exactly.
Which is unnatural for me to do. I would have normally like sunk my claws into that. That doesn't make sense. What's going on?
So for a couple of cuts I did where I was like, none of this is exactly what it seems, but I was preparing myself for like, he wakes up out of a virtual world and his real life that we're now in is something totally different. And that's the MacGuffin I'm used to seeing, right? Like Blade Runner type of atmosphere he wakes up in or some shit. Totally not the case. And it's actually pretty overt as time goes on. What you're seeing is, yes, this is exactly what you think it is. So super cool though. But the way they developed and delivered that was fantastic. Like, I mean, we're in the 8.5 meg territory for me just after season 1. Like, I'm not going to give you anything on Daredevil because I haven't seen the whole series. I can't really give you an opinion.
Yeah, totally.
I can give you a take, but that's all I can give. This was awesome, dude. I can't wait for season 2 if they make one.
They have to. The popularity of this show has gotten through the roof, and so I think they've already been greenlit for season 2. I've heard.
Cool.
But
and now I want to see more Sterling K. Brown. I want to see this guy in everything. Like, he's awesome. I love this guy.
I think we will now because of this role. I think they're going to start throwing scripts at this guy left and right, because it would be criminal not to. After the way that he handled this, it would be criminal not to actually throw down and go, you've earned every one of these scripts because of how you handled Paradise. But,
I like the use of the Nintendo Wii in the last 2 episodes where it's like, that's the most benign, like unbelievable, pretty powerful plot point that you could throw at us, centered around this obscure Nintendo product from, 15, 20 years ago, something like that. So it was just like, beautiful. That was beautifully done. Yeah.
The soundtrack is also amazing throughout the whole thing.
It is, yeah. And it's fun how, for as cool as the effects were that they were able to deliver, you could tell this was not a high budget production. Like if they're using stuff like a Nintendo Wii and they're using a lot of the same set pieces over and over again with flashbacks and cutscenes, they're just rendered different colors and stuff. But it's super sick. Like that's where good writing and excellent direction come into play. And I thought the whole series was absolutely engaging from start to finish. So I'm in the 8.5 meg territory with this one. It was super good. So
yeah, and the way that they capped it off, you could have stopped the series right there and just let yourself explore internally what you think the rest of the story was, right?
Yeah.
What he finds out there or whatever the case may be. But it definitely leaves it open for tons more exploration on what this series has to offer.
Yeah.
And so they ended it beautifully with that, where certain things got tied up. You got certain answers to certain things, but it opened up a bunch more questions that, if not answered in a second season, it doesn't feel like you were left on a cliffhanger. It feels like you were left with exploration that could have happened, or you could just make it up in your own head and be okay with it.
And I want to set like a small piece of context to the season 2 piece. They have to tie this off as a self-sabotage event or something that has to do with us nuking ourselves, other countries, that kind of thing. They can't let this be some sort of natural recurring disaster and no one can go outside type of thing, because then it becomes Fallout, and Fallout is already existence. It's already high budget, and it's also very, very, very good. But it is interesting that how a year apart, a very similar storyline was also greenlit as kind of the small scrappy brother, so to speak, because there's a ton of throughput like storylines that are almost the same beats over and over again. And I am looking forward to Fallout, the second season, because they did an awesome job with that. And that is IP I'm really deeply familiar with.
Yeah. So I can't wait for Fallout season 2. I can't wait for Paradise season 2.
Yeah.
They've done a good job with these kind of post-apocalyptic series that
man, I had a great time.
Come out of the all right, we're done with zombies.
Yeah.
We can't do the zombie post-apocalyptic thing anymore as far as series go. We've kind of run that through. Let's what can we do now?
Although 28 years later is supposed to come out this year.
That I'm looking forward to.
Danny Boyle, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think he came back for the third.
I'm probably going to watch that one.
Which is odd.
Yeah, no, I saw the other two. They were not my favorite subject matter, but I'm a big Cillian Murphy fan, and I thought that I'm also a big Danny Boyle fan.
Yeah.
And they did they did a pretty good job, even though I was a little squeamish around some parts. So we'll see how it goes, but I was pretty stoked to see that as well.
Yeah. Both those movies are a good time.
So we do have The Gospel by Gen Z. It's back. It's here.
Yes. I was feeling spiritually famished.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we're at chapter 37, multiplying loaves, by the way.
Yeah, wow. Good timing. Bring it to me, Jesus.
Oh, man. All right. His 12 besties were on the grind, preaching and healing so much that their social batteries were empty. Jesus told them to recharge with God in a quiet place, so they got into a boat and tried to give him an Irish goodbye. When they got to the other side of the shore, they were met by a chat full of people rip their notifs. For their holy riz was so strong that they accidentally pulled the sick, possessed, and hopeless. Jesus had empathy for them all, because they had no top G to come in clutch for them, so he unlocked their perfect health and spilled the holy tea to all of them. At evening, his fam said, "Bro, it's late. Let them all go get a girl dinner or something, I don't know." But Holy Bro said, "Nah, you come in clutch for them." And they all replied in perfect harmony, "Bruh, are you for real right now?" For there were 5,000 men besides women and children, and all their bread would still have been lacking. Jesus said, "How much bread you got?" Andrew said, "There's little bro with 5 loaves and 2 fish right here." So Jesus took the bread and told it to be extra. And the bread looked at Jesus and said, "Bet." And the whole chat ate and left no crumbs. And they had 12 full baskets of crumbs left over. So they said, "Hold up, the math ain't mathin'." Also, the bread was a paid actor. I don't know where it comes from, but it's all good. That's chapter 37. We could look forward to chapter 38. A quick peek ahead says it's called Walking on Water. Can't wait for that. That's the Gospel by Gen Z in a hardback. I think everyone should get one of these. It's hilarious. Still delivering. I don't know what we're going to do, man. We're 55 episodes in. I don't know what we're going to do for another story hour that's so perfectly cut into like a minute and a half excerpt, but I gotta be on the hunt for something fun.
Yeah, we gotta look for something that we'll be able to, because we don't have much time left on the Bible here.
Yeah, it's true.
So, but we'll find something. We'll find something to fill that void.
So let's do some housekeeping, man. You're probably not going to be online next week, right? You're in the middle of anniversary plus travels plus work, all that stuff.
I gotta fly and then romanticize my wife.
There you go.
Pardon me while I dip out for a week.
Sure.
And then unfortunately, I think I'm going to be traveling the next Tuesday as well. I can
figure some stuff out too, because I kind of want to explore the my take on where James Bond has gone.
I'm fascinated.
That's going to be a big piece for me. But also we might be able to call on some of the homies.
Yeah, please do call on some of the homies. But also, I would like to take on let's each do a top 5 pick of who, if we had our pick of who James Bond would be in the current iteration of actors right now, the current stable, if you will.
So not all time, but current actors. Who's our top 5?
Yeah, who would be the one to start the new franchise?
Okay.
And pick your top 5 of if they came to you and said, "Angel, I need 5 people that we can select from that might be your next Mr. Bond."
Sure.
Because it's important. This is important. The IP has switched hands for the first time in a long time, and I don't like the hands that it switched to.
Me
and I think
either.
That you are, and it switched with an enormous amount of money exchanged.
Yeah,
and so what the IP of the Bond industry should be the fabric of it is going to change dramatically. Now,
it will
public pressure.
It will be unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. But I also feel, much like any other time that they do this, that we can ignore the next couple of years of Bond material, because it will crash and burn and make zero money, and we'll get a bunch of internet flack, and they're going to get a lot of hate for it, and then they will have to correct course. Now, what they should do is actually put their finger to the wind.
Yeah. Just start with Christopher Nolan's reboot instead of waiting for them to burn first.
Right. Exactly. So, but just put your finger to the wind and realize where the culture's shifting right now, that, where your dollars are actually being made, where people are actually finding interest in shows, and how much kind of the woke ideology stuff is failing on a financial level. And just kind of maybe take that into consideration before you go to destroy an icon. But do they have the sensibility to do that? I think not. I think that they will ignore all the signs. They will not put their finger in the wind, and they will go headlong into financial ruin for the sake of the cause. And
I mean, it'd be real hard to let James Bond take you down if you're Amazon, but yeah, I mean, from an IP's perspective, it will probably burn. Would be my yeah. So I don't know.
So yeah,
or worse, they'll get somebody who's hot to write it, like Taylor Sheridan or something.
All right, James Bond is a cowboy now.
It's cute. Like M is Billy Bob, and the Bond girl is what's her name?
Alice or
Ollie Larder.
What? Ollie Larder.
Hey, right now, I don't mind that. It's not a bad take. Ollie Larder is very cute in that show. I don't care how old she gets. She's still cute. All right. Well, we'll figure some programming out because I've got some ideas. We will take the top 5 to heart as some homework. But I think that's probably it for us tonight. And then obviously you'll be traveling. I'll see if I can get some guests on. We may just do an audio spot. I could do a live thing. We'll figure it out as we go. Obviously, there's a lot going on at work, so make some time. We'll figure it out. We love you guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Night.